The galaxy had always known war and fire, every empire believed in showing power with loud threats and burning fleets, but when the humans arrived nothing happened, no explosion, no attack, no words of anger. They came in silence, their warships slid out of the dark void one by one, massive shapes blocking stars with their size, and yet they did not move, they did not charge. The aliens who had prepared for battle felt confused, their fleets had gathered weapons, charged and shields raised, every eye focused on the humans, expecting the first strike, expecting destruction to fall, but it never came. The humans simply waited, their ships stood still like shadows of mountains floating in space. This silence was worse than war itself. Commanders on alien bridges felt their skin crawl, soldiers whispered to one another, why are they not firing, why are they so calm? No one could understand. Some thought perhaps the humans were weak and afraid to fight, others feared the opposite, perhaps this calm meant humans had no reason to fear because they already held power no one else could match. Across the Council of Worlds messages flew in, panic reports rushed in saying the humans are here, the humans have arrived, prepare for destruction, but all reports ended the same, with silence. The humans waited, and nothing more. The aliens had expected fire, they had expected screams of war, they had expected the thunder of cannons, but what they received was nothing, and that nothing was terrifying. Fleets of the great empires floated around them like predators circling prey, but even predators felt uneasy when prey did not move, when prey stared back with calm eyes. In the alien command halls voices rose, leaders argued, one shouted, why are they waiting? Another said, they are weak, strike now. But an older voice whispered, no, do not move, if they are calm then they know something we do not. The silence spread like poison, it entered the hearts of warriors and kings, it made strong leaders hesitate, it made brave soldiers doubt. Because no one in the galaxy had ever faced an enemy that did not roar before battle. Every empire had their way, some screamed, some threatened, some launched the first fireball, but none ever arrived with only silence. The humans broke every rule of war, they came without words, without threats, without fear, and the galaxy could not handle it. On the largest alien flagship the commander stared at the human fleet, his claws tapped the metal desk, his eyes narrowed. He had fought 100 wars and crushed 10 worlds, but never had he felt this strange pressure. It was not the weight of guns or the fear of losing men, it was the unknown. What do they want? He whispered. His officers did not answer because no one knew. On the human ships no movement was seen, no signal, no sound, only the calm glow of their hulls reflecting distant stars. Their silence was like the breath before a storm, long and heavy and endless. Some alien spies claimed the humans were waiting for the galaxy to break first, others said humans were giving one last chance for peace, but no proof came, only silence. Minutes turned to hours, hours turned to days. Fleets stayed locked in standoff across the stars, weapons aimed, but not fired, and through it all the humans never moved. One alien soldier wrote in his log, this calm is worse than fire, at least fire kills quickly, this silence eats the soul. And that log would later be read across his people with shaking voices. Fear spread faster than flames because no one knew what would come next. Would the humans suddenly attack? Would they vanish? Would they speak? Days of silence became heavier than years of war. Leaders sent spies, messengers, even signals into the void, but the humans gave nothing, only stillness. In the council chambers rulers shouted, some wanted to strike first, some wanted to beg for talk, some wanted to flee, but all were trapped by the same thought, what if the humans are calm because they do not see us as a threat? What if they are beyond us? That question spread across worlds, it spread into cities, it spread into homes. Alien citizens looked up at their skies and asked, why are the humans not fighting? And no answer ever came. In those days of silence fear became the strongest weapon. Humans had not lifted a single cannon, and already the galaxy was trembling like glass in a storm. The commanders who once promised glory now avoided speaking of humans. The warriors who once dreamed of victory now dreamed only of survival, because silence was stronger than war. Silence was stronger than fire. Silence was the new battlefield, and on that battlefield humanity stood untouched, calm and unbroken, while the galaxy waited for the storm that might never come. The Galaxy Council gathered in a great hall filled with voices of fear. The leaders of many empires sat around a burning light that showed the human fleet waiting in silence. None of them could understand. It was not war, it was not peace, it was something else. One leader slammed his fist on the table and shouted, they insult us by doing nothing. Another hissed, perhaps they mock us, perhaps they want us to fear them. An old emperor leaned forward, his eyes tired and heavy, and whispered, or perhaps they do not even see us as worth speaking to. The hall grew quiet at those words. The silence of humans had turned into a poison that touched every empire, every commander, every world. Messages from the front lines told the same story. Humans still wait, humans still calm, humans still silent. The fleets of the galaxy had gathered, but none dared to fire because every mind wondered, what if this is a trap? What if the humans are waiting for us to make the first mistake? A young ruler stood tall and cried, they are Weak no warrior hides in silence, we must strike now. But his voice was met with doubt, because everyone remembered the ancient stories. Humans were not weak, they had survived against odds no one else could survive. They had risen from a small world, and crossed the stars without help. They had fought nature itself, storms, deserts, oceans, and still they thrived. If they were calm, then maybe they had nothing to fear. The council's arguments grew louder. Some demanded war, some demanded retreat, and some demanded to wait. But waiting was the very thing that burned their hearts, because silence from humans was heavier than weapons. The longer the humans waited, the more the council broke. Outside the council chambers, the common people asked questions. What are humans planning? Why do they not speak? Is this the end? No leader could answer, and that made fear worse than ever. A wise alien who had lived through 100 battles said one sentence that shook the hall: the calm of humans is not weakness, it is control. And everyone knew he was right, because only the strong can stay calm when surrounded by enemies. The weak shout, the weak strike in fear, the strong stay silent and wait. The debate lasted for hours. No one reached agreement. Every empire returned to its own throne, but the same thought followed them: what do humans want across the stars? Spies tried to scan human ships, but found nothing strange. They could not read their signals, they could not see their weapons. Everything was hidden in the silence. Some aliens believed humans had invisible power. Some thought they used fear as a weapon. Some thought they were bluffing, but none could prove their ideas. As the days passed, the council's unity broke apart. Smaller empires began to whisper about surrender. Stronger empires whispered about sudden attack. Others whispered about running far away from human space. Yet no one dared to move, because every option felt like walking into death. The hall that once echoed with plans of victory now echoed with fear. Even the greatest generals who had crushed planets now spoke with trembling voices, saying, if humans are calm, then they already know the ending. One leader finally asked the question no one wanted to hear: what if we fire first, and they do not fall? What then? The silence that followed was colder than space. No one answered, because everyone knew if humans did not fall, then the galaxy itself would fall with them. So the council ended with no decision. The empires returned to their fleets. The leaders returned to their thrones, but none could sleep, because in their minds they heard only one sound: the sound of silence. The silence of human warships floating across the stars, waiting for something that no one else could see, waiting with calm that turned the galaxy into shadows, waiting with power that could not be measured, waiting with patience that broke the courage of all who watched. The uneasy council had gathered to show strength, but it left showing fear, and the humans still did nothing. The alien fleets could not wait forever. Their nerves were breaking. Every hour spent watching the silent human ships felt like a blade pressed closer to the throat, and at last one empire decided to test the calm. They sent a fleet forward shining with weapons. Their ships moved like spears across the stars, closing in on the humans, while the rest of the galaxy held its breath. Every alien expected the humans to finally open fire to unleash the storm, but once again nothing happened. The human ships did not move, they did not charge, they simply watched the alien fleet approach as if it was nothing at all. The alien commander grew bold and sent a sharp signal across the void demanding, identify yourself, and declare your purpose, or be destroyed. For a long moment, there was only silence again. Then at last the human fleet answered with one simple message: stand down, we are not here for war. The words were calm, almost gentle, but in that calm there was weight heavier than any weapon. The alien commander froze. The council received the message, and leaders argued once more. Some laughed at the weakness of such words. They said humans hide behind soft tongues, but others felt the cold terror in those simple letters, because no empire ever spoke with calm when threatened. Every empire shouted, every empire screamed. Humans did not shout, they warned once, and then fell silent again. The galaxy had expected threats of fire and thunder, but instead they received restraint, and that restraint was more frightening than war itself. Whispers spread across the fleets: why do humans warn instead of fight? What do they hold in their silence? Some soldiers thought humans were merciful, others thought they were toying with the galaxy like hunters with prey. One general said in fear, they gave one warning, only one. What if there will not be another? As the words of the message echoed across empires, debates grew fiercer. Should they answer with peace? Should they answer with war? The alien fleet that had moved closest now hesitated, weapons charged, but commanders' hands trembling, because if they attacked and failed, their empire would be the first to burn. Yet, if they turned back, they would appear weak, caught between pride and fear. The alien ships hung frozen in space, staring at the humans, who stared back without moving, without fear, without sound. Across distant worlds, common people read the human message. Some felt relief, others felt more fear than ever, because no one could believe humans would come with such calm unless they had something so powerful that they did not need to fight. Children whispered in the streets, adults argued in the markets, prophets in temples shouted that humans were beyond mortal war. The galaxy's heart beat faster with every passing second. Still the humans moved, only once to deliver their words, then returned to silence. The silence now felt like a storm pressing on every soul, because after one warning, anything could follow. Days passed with no second message. Fleets stayed Frozen soldiers could not sleep, commanders could not decide, and in the middle of it, all the humans waited. One alien admiral admitted in secret, "We were ready for war, we were not ready for calm," and his words spread like a dark shadow because everyone knew they were true. The first move had been made, but it was not war, it was a warning, and the warning was worse than war because it left the galaxy drowning in fear. The galaxy had fought many wars, but none had ever felt like this because no one knew what humans were planning. The silence after their warning grew heavier. Every day, alien commanders who had once laughed now sat in their war rooms whispering in fear. Why are they calm? What do they know that we do not? Fleets that had always moved with confidence now stayed frozen, staring at the human warships across the void. The unknown pressed harder than any weapon. Every scan failed, every attempt to read human signals ended in nothing. Their ships were like dark shadows carrying secrets that no mind could break, and the more the galaxy failed to understand, the more fear grew. Some empires believed humans were waiting for a perfect moment to strike, others thought humans had weapons beyond imagination hidden deep inside their silent hulls, and some even believed humans could end the war without firing at all, simply by letting fear rot the courage of their enemies. In council halls, leaders argued day after day, but every voice carried doubt. No one could say with certainty what the humans wanted. One emperor shouted, "They wait because they are weak." Another whispered, "They wait because they are gods," and the council fell into silence because no one could answer. One spy who returned from the human lines told a story that spread like fire. He said, "I saw their crews, and they did not look afraid. They sat calm at their stations as if surrounded by friends, not enemies. They did not fear us at all." Those words shook entire empires because if humans were not afraid, then maybe the galaxy should be. The unknown became a storm inside the minds of millions. Soldiers began to imagine invisible weapons. Watching them, commanders began to see shadows in every scan. The galaxy trembled, not because of what humans did, but because of what they might do at any moment, and that fear grew worse every time the humans did nothing. A small empire sent scouts closer, but none returned. The ships vanished without sound, without trace. Some whispered humans destroyed them, others whispered the scouts were allowed to vanish as a warning, but no proof ever came, and that mystery was worse than truth. Across alien cities, people spoke in hushed voices. Markets grew quiet, temples filled with prayers, mothers held children close, fathers whispered stories of the old days before humans, when war was simple and known. Now war was unknown, and that made every heart bleed. Fear of the unknown turned the strongest generals into cowards. One alien admiral admitted in secret, "Give me fire, give me open battle, give me a storm I can see, but do not give me the silence." And yet the silence stayed. The humans never explained, never threatened, never begged. They waited, and every day of waiting was a victory because the galaxy was breaking itself from inside. The fear of the unknown had become the greatest weapon humanity ever used without firing a single shot. The silence of the humans was no longer just silence, it was turning into a storm of fear. And then came the first clue of their hidden strength. An alien scout ship risked everything to approach closer, breaking through the edge of the human line. Its crew scanned deeper than anyone before, and what they saw made their voices shake. They found weapons hidden inside the human warships, weapons that did not match anything in the galaxy. Massive cannons with unknown power, shields layered like walls of stars, engines that could twist gravity itself. The scout recorded only fragments before the ship was lost, but those fragments were enough to spread terror. When the data reached the council, the hall fell into whispers. Some said it was false, some said it was real, but all agreed that if humans carried such power, their silence meant something greater than war. It meant control. The news spread like fire through the fleet. Soldiers who once thought humans were bluffing now feared they were unstoppable. The thought of invisible weapons waiting to awaken was worse than any open attack. Commanders argued again in the council. One voice cried, "If they had such strength, why do they not use it?" Another answered, "Because they do not need to use it." And those words chilled every heart because only the strongest enemy fights without showing its hand. Rumors grew across the stars. Some believed humans could shatter fleets with one strike, others believed humans carried weapons that could burn entire planets, and yet through it all the humans did nothing. They remained calm and silent, letting fear work for them. One alien general tried to rally his soldiers, saying, "Strength is nothing without will. They are afraid like us." But his words were empty because everyone had seen the fragments, everyone had seen the hidden power, and the silence around it made it even darker. Civilians began to panic in distant cities. Some prayed for mercy, others demanded their leaders surrender before it was too late. The unknown strength of humans was now larger than truth itself, and no one could ignore it. Across the fleet, soldiers whispered to each other, "They could destroy us all in seconds," and that whisper became poison in their hearts. One empire sent another probe trying to see more, but it too vanished without a trace. The more they searched, the less they found, and the less they found, the more fear grew. Commanders began to see every human ship as a mountain of death waiting to fall. The calm of humans was no longer Only strange it was terrifying because now the galaxy knew they had reason to be calm, reason hidden in weapons no one could measure. The hidden strength of humanity became a shadow over every star. Every empire knew they could not fight what they did not understand, and what they did not understand was standing silent in the void, watching them without fear, without movement, waiting for a moment only they could see. The galaxy could not hold its fear forever. The silence of the humans, the whispers of hidden power, and the unknown weapons hanging in the void were tearing the courage of empires apart, until one empire finally broke. Unable to live in waiting any longer, they gathered a fleet of fire, and swore they would strike first to prove that humans were not gods. The council tried to stop them, but pride and fear had grown too strong, and soon 1,000 alien warships moved across the stars straight into the line of human. Silent soldiers cheered with false courage, leaders shouted a victory, and the galaxy watched with desperate eyes, for this attack would decide everything. When the alien fleet crossed the boundary, the humans did not move at first. They let the enemy come closer until weapons were locked and ready, and then with no warning a single human ship answered the strike. One beam of light brighter than suns cut across the void, and in seconds, the alien fleet burned. Thousands of ships vanished in fire with no chance to fight back, no time to scream. It was not a battle, it was an execution. The survivors fled in terror, their voices crying through the void, saying, "They destroyed us in one strike, they destroyed us without effort," and those words carried faster than the flames themselves. The galaxy froze in horror, because now the silence had meaning. Now the calm was clear. The humans did not need war, they did not need chaos. They could erase fleets in a heartbeat, and still they returned to silence after the strike. The human ships did not chase, they did not speak, they simply waited again, as if nothing had happened, and that was the most terrifying part, because it showed they had only acted when forced. One strike to remind the galaxy what calm really meant. Commanders across empires trembled. They had seen fleets fall in battles before, but never had they seen a fleet vanish in seconds with only one blow. The council met again, but this time there was no shouting, no arguing. Only fear. Leaders whispered among themselves, saying, "If this is their answer to one attack, what will they do if the whole galaxy moves against them?" No one could reply. The breaking point had come, and the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity's calm was not weakness, it was power, greater than war, greater than fear, greater than all the empires combined. In homes across alien worlds, citizens wept in silence. They knew their armies were nothing, they knew their leaders could not save them. They knew humans held a strength that could not be broken, and yet those humans did not conquer, they did not destroy, they only warned once, and then waited in calm silence. That silence now felt endless, like a shadow covering every star, and the galaxy finally understood the breaking point was not the destruction of ships, it was the destruction of hope itself, because when hope dies, even the strongest empire cannot fight, and in that moment the galaxy had lost to humanity without a war. The galaxy had seen fleets fall before, but never like this one. Strike from a single human ship had burned an empire's pride to nothing, and then silence returned, silence heavier than fire, silence colder than death. Now fear spread like a storm across every world. Empires that once roared with power now whispered like frightened children in the dark. On alien streets people asked, "What chance do we have if even 1,000 ships can vanish in seconds?" Priests filled temples with prayers, generals hid behind excuses, and rulers lost their voices. The galaxy was trembling not because of what humans said, but because of what they did not say. After the destruction, the humans sent no message, they made no threat, they gave no demand, they only returned to stillness, and that stillness was more terrifying than war. Entire fleets now refused to move, commanders refused to give orders, soldiers refused to sleep, because their dreams were filled with burning light and silent ships watching them like shadows. From beyond the stars in the council hall, leaders begged each other for answers. Some said, "We must beg for peace," others said, "Peace cannot be begged, we must wait and hope they do not strike again." One proud emperor shouted, "They will not strike unless we force them, so let us stay still, let us obey." The silence, and even his words, were filled with fear, for no one wanted to test humanity again. Rumors rose across the stars, some whispered humans could destroy whole planets with one thought, others whispered they could bend time itself, and some said they had no limit at all. And the more these stories grew, the less courage. The galaxy had once brave empires now trembled, once mighty armies now stood frozen. Children grew up hearing the name human spoken like a curse, spoken like a god, spoken like the end of all things. The trembling spread until it reached the council once more, and for the first time in history empires that hated each other agreed on one thing: they all feared the same enemy, and that enemy had not even moved to conquer them. One envoy finally spoke the words that no one wanted to hear: "We must beg them for peace before the silence breaks into fire again." His voice echoed, and no one argued, because every mind remembered the burning fleet, every mind remembered the strike that erased hope, every mind remembered that calm face of humanity that had done what no one else could do. The galaxy trembled as messengers were prepared, gifts were gathered, pleas were written. For the first Time the strongest rulers in the stars bent their pride and sent envoys to humans begging for mercy, and all the while the human ships waited still watching without fear, without hunger, without words, and that waiting broke the galaxy more than war ever could, for the trembling never ended, and the silence never lifted, and in that endless silence the galaxy finally understood they were no longer masters of the stars. The galaxy had always believed that power was measured in fleets and armies and fire, and in destruction, but humanity changed everything without shouting, without demanding, without conquering. They broke the courage of empires with silence alone, and now the council sent envoys to beg for peace. Their ships carried treasures, promises, oaths of loyalty, and even prayers, yet when they reached the human fleet no one knew what to expect. The envoys trembled as they approached, afraid a single wrong word would bring fire upon their worlds, but when their message was delivered the humans replied with the same calm voice that had haunted the galaxy from the beginning, "We do not seek war, we ask only that you do not test us again." Then silence returned, no demand for land, no demand for tribute, no demand for submission, only a warning, and a calm that stretched across the stars. The envoys returned with this answer, and the galaxy fell into confusion. Some rulers wept in relief, others wept in shame, for they had expected to be crushed, yet the humans walked away, leaving them alive, leaving them free, leaving them trembling. The people of many worlds could not understand. Why would a power so great not use it? Why would they not conquer? Why would they not burn? Some said it was mercy, others said it was pride, and some whispered the darkest truth of all: they did not need to rule the galaxy because their silence already ruled every heart. From that day forward, whenever fleets gathered, their commanders would remember the strike that erased thousands of ships. Whenever councils argued, they would remember the calm voice that spoke once and then waited. Whenever children asked about war, their parents would whisper fear. The silence of humans more than the fire of empires, and so humanity did not destroy the galaxy but reshaped it forever. Empires lowered their voices, armies moved with caution, rulers held their pride in chains, because everyone knew that in the void beyond their borders a silent fleet could return at any time, and if it returned, no prayer, no army, no council could save them. The galaxy had expected war, but what they received was worse. They received calm, calm that pressed on every thought, calm that killed pride, calm that ruled forever, even without conquest. In the end, the stars themselves seemed quieter, as if space remembered the weight of that silence, and in that silence the galaxy understood the greatest weapon was not fire, it was control. The greatest power was not destruction, it was patience, and the calm of humanity became the shadow that hung over forever. The galaxy thought the story had ended when humanity gave their warning and walked away, but the truth was far more dangerous, because silence does not end, silence lingers, it grows heavier with time, and across the stars empires began to feel the weight of that silence pressing down on them like a mountain. No one dared to speak against humans, no one dared to raise fleets against them, yet in their fear they began to break from inside. Kings doubted their thrones, generals doubted their armies, people doubted their leaders, because all of them remembered the one strike that erased 1,000 ships and the calm that followed. Some whispered that humans would return one day to test the galaxy again, others said humans did not need to return because their shadow already ruled the stars. Fleets that once marched proudly across borders now moved carefully, as if afraid to disturb the quiet of the void. Even trade routes slowed, because captains feared drifting too close to human. Space temples rose in every empire where prophets spoke of humans as beings beyond flesh, beyond war. Some called them gods, some called them demons, but all called them the end of arrogance. One small empire tried to rise again, declaring that humans were gone forever, and that fear was weakness. They built fleets, they spoke loud, but when their people looked at them no one believed their courage, because courage had died the day silence won, and soon their empire collapsed without a single human firing upon them. The galaxy now fought itself with paranoia. Empires turned on each other with suspicion, thinking maybe some had made secret deals with humans, maybe some carried human weapons, maybe some knew the secret of their silence. Wars broke out not against humanity, but against neighbors, fear making the galaxy tear itself apart, and through it all humanity remained unseen, unheard, untouched. Their silence was heavier than any blade, for it made every empire its own enemy. In the council, the leaders gathered once more, their voices low, their faces pale. They said, "We beg for peace, but peace is already here. We beg for mercy, but mercy is already given. What we truly beg for is freedom from this silence." And no answer came, because humans were not there yet. Their absence felt louder than their presence, because absence held mystery, and mystery fed fear. Children grew up with lullabies that warned them, "Do not wake." The human soldiers trained not for victory but for survival. Rulers reigned not with power but with trembling hands, and the galaxy that had once mocked humanity now lived in a prison built by their own fear. The weight of silence had become the true conqueror, and it was a conqueror no one could fight, no one could escape, and no one could ever defeat. The galaxy tried to live with the silence, but silence does not fade, it grows stronger with every year, and soon the memory of humanity became more than a memory, it became a shadow stretching across every star. Rulers tried to rebuild their pride, but their own people did not believe them. Soldiers trained with weapons, but in their eyes lived the fear of facing humans again. Even children who had never seen the silent fleet carried the stories as if they were born with them. Humanity had become more than a power, they had become a legend, a warning carved into the heart of the galaxy. Some empires began to whisper that humans had left spies hidden in every system, watching, listening, waiting. Others believed human ships were still out there, invisible beyond sight, drifting like ghosts above their worlds, and that fear turned into obedience, even without chains. Leaders gave orders carefully, never speaking of war with humans, because the thought alone shook their people apart. The galaxy had been conquered without a war, and the worst part was no one knew if the conquerors even cared. Time passed, and still no word came from humanity, but the silence kept its hold in the council hall. A ruler finally spoke words that made every leader shiver. He said, "We are not free, we are ruled by shadows and silence," and no one argued because all of them knew it was true. The shadow of human calm was everywhere. Every decision, every law, every whisper carried the weight of what if they return, and that question killed courage more than any cannon. One desperate empire tried to prove strength by sending explorers far away from the core of the galaxy. They claimed they would find new stars, new life far from human eyes, but even there the shadow followed, because wherever they went their people still feared the unknown. They still looked over their shoulders, wondering if the next star, the next dark void, the next silent space would hide human ships waiting with calm eyes, waiting with patience that never ended. And so the explorers returned, broken and ashamed, their mission failing before it began, because silence had already defeated them. Across the stars voices rose again, saying, perhaps the humans do not even need to fight again, perhaps they rule forever simply by being out there somewhere unseen. And the galaxy trembled once more, not from fire, not from war, but from shadows that had no end and silence that had no limit. The galaxy was no longer the same after humanity's calm silence, for fear had turned into something deeper. It had turned into division. Empires no longer trusted each other, councils no longer carried unity. Every ruler looked at their neighbor and wondered if they had already bent the knee to the humans in secret. Whispers grew in marketplaces that some empires were protected because they had offered hidden tribute to humanity. Others believed humans had given chosen worlds forbidden knowledge, and this belief tore the galaxy apart. Fleets that once guarded borders now turned inward, guarding their own worlds from allies. Trade routes shattered as captains refused to pass near rival systems, fearing betrayal. The council tried to call for unity, but every meeting ended in silence and stares, because in the shadows of their minds one question always burned: what if the humans are watching right now? What if every word we speak is judged by them? In this fear, empires turned their rage against themselves. Rebellions sparked in colonies. Soldiers questioned their commanders. Leaders feared assassination in their palaces because everyone thought weakness might invite human punishment. The galaxy was collapsing not from battle, but from paranoia. Silence had become poison, and yet through this chaos not a single human ship appeared. The absence itself was unbearable. Some said humanity had chosen this path to let the galaxy destroy itself without lifting a finger. Others argued that humans had simply forgotten them, but even that thought carried fear, for if humans had forgotten, then what would happen if they remembered again? The fractured galaxy no longer dreamed of power, no longer spoke of conquest. The word war had become cursed, a sound that made even generals uneasy, and yet deep in the shadows something began to stir. A small group of leaders whispered of breaking the silence, not by attacking humanity, but by seeking them. They said perhaps the only way to end the shadow was to face it. Perhaps the only way to escape fear was to meet the humans again and ask them what they wanted. It was a dangerous idea, and yet it grew like fire in dry wood, because silence had ruled too long, and the galaxy was tired of living in chains. They built a secret fleet, not to fight, but to search. Their mission was simple: find the humans and demand an answer. But no one knew if the galaxy was ready for the truth. No one knew if silence was better than what they might discover beyond the stars. The secret fleet was unlike any other fleet the galaxy had seen before. It was not built for war, yet every ship carried weapons. It was not built for peace, yet every ship carried ambassadors. It was not built for trade, yet every ship carried treasures as offerings. It was a fleet built for fear, for hope, for desperation. Leaders from broken empires gathered their best crews, their most loyal captains, and sent them into the dark void with one order: find the humans and learn the truth. The fleet moved in silence, avoiding trade routes, avoiding known borders. They traveled into empty space where no empire ruled. The stars were cold, the void endless, and every shadow felt alive with hidden eyes. Crews whispered at night, wondering if humans already knew of their mission. Some thought humans would be waiting ahead with open arms, others feared they would appear with cold judgment. The first weeks passed in silence. The fleet found nothing but dark skies and dead worlds, yet the silence felt heavier with Every day captains reported strange signals, faint pulses of energy that vanished when scanned. Others swore they saw shapes in the distance, massive silhouettes that melted back into the stars. One navigator said she felt a presence watching always just behind them, but when she turned nothing was there. Tension grew, and some crews began to ask if the humans were leading them on a path of their choosing. Perhaps every step had been allowed, perhaps they were not searching but being guided. Finally, after months of travel, they came upon something impossible, a structure floating between stars. It was not a station, not a world, but a ring larger than any ship, larger than anything they had ever seen. It pulsed with faint light like a heartbeat, and the fleet froze in awe. Some said it was human, some said it was a warning, others whispered it was a doorway. The council of captains gathered their voices, trembling. None of them wanted to move forward yet. None of them dared to turn back. They knew they had reached something that carried the shadow of humanity, something ancient, or perhaps new, waiting for them, waiting for this very moment. And the question that burned in every heart was simple: if they entered, would they finally find humans, or would they never return to the galaxy again? The fleet floated before the great ring, its lights pulsing like a heart, and silence filled every ship. No one spoke, no one breathed, for they all knew this was the moment they had been sent for, the moment they feared yet could not escape. At last, the lead captain gave the order to move forward. One ship entered the ring, and then the next, and in a breath the fleet was swallowed by light. When their vision cleared, they were no longer in normal space. Around them stretched an endless field of structures, far larger than planets, machines that looked like cities floating in the void, towers that touched stars, and ships beyond imagination, each one massive enough to dwarf their entire fleet. And all of them carried the same mark, the same simple symbol that they all knew by heart: humanity. The crews could not speak, they could only stare, their hands shaking, their voices lost. For here was the truth: humans had not disappeared, humans had not forgotten, humans had been building something far beyond the understanding of the galaxy. And then a voice came, not from one ship, not from one channel, but from everywhere. It was calm, it was steady, it was human, and it said, "You searched for us, you feared us, you broke yourselves in silence, but know this: we never wished for your destruction, we never wished for your chains, we only wished for peace and quiet, and the galaxy could not give it, so we built our own world beyond yours, a world where your wars cannot reach us, a world where your greed cannot follow. But now you have come here, so you must hear the truth: humanity will not rule your galaxy, we do not need your stars, we do not want your thrones, but remember this: if you bring fire again, if you threaten us again, we will return, and this time silence will not save you." And with those words the fleet was pushed back through the ring. The stars of normal space returned, the great structure gone, as if it never existed. The fleet trembled, their leaders pale, for they now carried the answer: humanity did not wish for war, yet the shadow of their power was greater than any war could be. They had seen ships the size of moons, they had heard the calm voice that carried more weight than any empire, and they knew the galaxy would never be the same when they returned home. Some would tell the truth, some would twist the story, but all would agree on one thing: humanity had given a final warning, and the silence that followed was not weakness, it was strength, a strength so deep, so unshakable, that no empire would ever dare break it again. For the galaxy had searched for humans, and in the end they had found not conquerors, not rulers, but something far more terrifying: a people who did not need the galaxy at all. And that truth became the end of the fear and the beginning of something new.